Okay, all right. Welcome to the optics around cost visibility. So you're here today to learn about how to build a successful cost visibility strategy in your company. I'm going to use my experience as a commercial architect at Amazon, the customers I work with, and my time as a customer to kind of drive this conversation. I will be using Amazon examples, obviously, because I work there, but these concepts can be generalized to any cloud provider. So if you're multi-cloud, or if you're using a different one, then you can still listen along. So a bit about me. As I said, my name's Steph Gooch, and I am a commercial architect at AWS. Prior to this, I was a developer for many years at KPMG, and then I managed their FinOps practice. And I work in a team called Optics, hence the name of the talk and my shirt. And we are resources that help global customers in their cloud financial management journey. So we look at cost optimization, we look at financial management, and also how to build that kind of culture for cost. And I've been part of the foundation for many years, and I'm so happy to be back in person chatting to everybody. Okay, so getting into the talk, why do we need cost visibility? So, well, hopefully some of these will resonate with you. So first of all, we have things like chargeback. So this is a common challenge that most of you might have felt, which is where you have to charge back internally to recuperate costs. This can sometimes be a manual process, or it can cause issues because people are getting a bill just saying, you owe us money for this service, and they don't know what it is. We have general reporting. So a big part of being a practitioner in FinOps is sharing data, sharing cloud cost data with your stakeholders, with your peers, with your managers. And a big challenge for that is, how do you know if you're giving them the right data? How do you know if it's efficient at helping them do their job? And what questions do you ask? We also have efficiency. This is a big thing in the cloud at the moment. It was mentioned in the keynote as well. And kind of identifying waste and also how well you're doing in the cloud. And providers are starting to give you this data, which is great. But how do you look at a granular level? How do you find the waste that you can actually make changes with? Goal tracking. I like to say, if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. So how do you determine if your application or your service is a success? Are you sticking to budget? Are you actually recuperating costs? What KPIs have you got? So hands up, do these sound familiar? Who's had these kind of challenges before? Okay, that's good for me because it means you're in the right talk, but maybe bad for you guys if you're having these challenges. So we're going to use a scenario today to kind of be a through line for this talk. And we have a character here called Wanda. Yes, I saw Multiverse of Madness, and she's my favorite character. And so this version, she is similar to you guys. She has the challenges from the last slide, and she's got to do chargeback for her company and her FinOps team. So we're going to go through kind of 3 stages of how to get the data, what data you need, and the visibility for this talk. So what data is needed? To have a good cloud visibility strategy, you need to make sure you have the right data. So all cloud providers kind of give you a few different ways to do this. So the first is that really kind of basic CSV Billing Report. So if you're new to the cloud, this is probably your first step, just seeing your costs. But it's not going to be very granular. You won't be able to see kind of linked account maybe, and you can't see any kind of tagging information. So we can go a bit deeper. Next, we have our native tooling. So for Amazon, that's Cost Explorer. Other providers are available. And for these, it allows you to filter data, group them together, and you can use these to kind of see what's going on and dive deep into your costs. But there is still a cap on the limit of data you can get into, which brings us into our detailed billing. This is the big one. This is the one that we recommend you have. So if you haven't, whoever I was talking to earlier, we were chatting a bit about having data started up. You need to have your cost and usage report set up. This is your really granular information and has everything from hourly usage for all your services, and it's probably too big to open in Excel, so don't try it. But you can use things like database services like Athena to get the information out of it, or BI tools like QuickSight or any kind of other BI tool that you need. So first kind of recommendation, if you're new and you're an Amazon customer and you don't know what the CUR is, your homework today is to go find out if you've got it set up, and if you haven't, go set it up. There we go. So we started off there with billing data, which is really important to start with, but then we have business data, and every business is different. But I want to recommend this business structure that we see a lot of customers benefit from. So I used to use it when I was a customer, and I recommend it to a lot of my customers, and you might have seen me present a slide similar to this before. As I said, we are using Amazon services to kind of describe this, but again, this can be generalized. So at the top, we have our organization. This is your centralized hub that looks across your entire account and estate, and everything kind of sits below this. Then we have our organizational units. These are your naturally occurring groups of accounts. So maybe a product, maybe a team, maybe a cost center, whatever is relevant to you. Then within these, we have linked accounts. Now, the key thing on the slide there is the names of them. So you have production, development, sandbox, all related to an application. This is relevant to cost is because everything within that account now can be allocated to that cost, which really simplifies your billing processes. Because when it comes to those resources, it means you don't have to rely on the tags on the resources. They can inherit everything from either the linked account or the organizational unit above. That was a lot of information to kind of quickly run through, but the good thing about this view is it really does simplify chargeback or kind of cost views because it's this top-down approach. And also, if you need to change anything, then you can do it at the higher level, meaning you don't have to go through all of your EC2s and change that tag. You can just do it in one location. Now, the QR code at the top there is for a lab on how to get this data out of your billing portal. I will go back to this again later, so if you don't want to get it now, there'll be a link for lots of these things. So, after we have our cost data, we have our business information, we also have shared services. There was a talk just in here that you should check out from Intuit that went into really granular examples of how to do this kind of shared services chargeback, so I recommend watching that after. So some people don't need to worry about this, they can just do the account level, but a lot of our customers have to actually deal with a deeper level of chargeback. So you have Amazon services, you might have containers or transit gateways where you need to charge back not the full resource, just the little bits that people have used. Then you have applications. A lot of us host applications in the cloud, and we need to charge back for those that have used it. So you might have a Jira application where you need to charge back the license fees, the infrastructure costs, the time people have spent on it, and how do you get that data? Commitments. Most of you have probably got RIs or savings plans or use Marketplace for some reason, and you have to charge people who have used that some of the time. The good thing is this one is often the easiest one to start with because it is in your CURT, or you can get it for other providers from like a set of data. So recommend kind of going in, if you need to start thinking about doing this chargeback, that's a good one to kind of start messing around with. So, oh, sorry, I went too far. Let's click up. So, we know what data we need. Wanda knows what she's doing. She needs to get business data, cost data, and her service-specific information. But how does she get it? Well, you start with the raw data. Really important there, raw data to start with. And the good thing is, we've already got our cost data. You did that with the cost and use report, so you can tick that box. Now, when it comes to the business data, that's where it kind of gets a bit different. So when I was a customer, we had a woman who had to manage all of our business data using a massive Excel sheet. And she had all of the account IDs, all the names of the owners, the cost centers, and as you can imagine, this went out of date very quickly the faster we expanded. And this was a real problem, and it meant that when we came to chargeback, it would be often be wrong, things would be out of date, and it would cause many, many issues internally. So we're going to go through some kind of ideas and solutions that could help you fix that. So there's a couple of chargeback services we have. You can have third-party vendors, many of which are outside today, Cloudability, Cloud Health, insert other one that you know about. And you can take advantage of those. They're really good to help with chargeback because they're built for that kind of thing. They can ingest your data and do it for you, and that's a great option. We've released something new called AWS Billing Conductor. You might have heard of it, or ABC. And this is a way of grouping accounts together, kind of like the OUs we mentioned earlier. But you take those groups and you can create a pro forma bill and a cost and usage report. This is really powerful if you have a lot of accounts and you have account owners that own multiple accounts and you want to give them their own CURT or give them their own bill. Also, if you're a reseller and you want to do custom line items, discounts, credits, you can use this service to do it. I will warn you, you do pay per billing record, so don't just go out today and do it if you have thousands of accounts. Go check it out, do recommend it, but you might only need it for a couple of your accounts. One of my customers has a lot of accounts, but only 5 of them under one group actually care about getting this individual CURT, so they're going to pay for it, and they're going to get that. The next one is that account metadata. So I mentioned that kind of triangle format before. You can take advantage of that structure. You can tag those accounts, you can tag those OUs, pull it together, attach it to your CURT, and that's how you do chargeback. Really simple way of attributing costs to business level information. And then we have our resources, our individual kind of EC2s, S3s that you tag. And if you need to do chargeback with that level, you can do. One thing I'd recommend doing is something that catches a lot of customers out, is that your tags need to be enabled. So say I've tagged my EC2 with my cost center, and I'm like, okay, great, when I go in my CURT, all that data will be in there. I get to the next month and I look and it's not there. It's because no one has enabled that tag in the billing console. So that's because there's all of you here, say you all had your own tag. You wouldn't want I don't want everybody's tag in my bill because it may not be relevant. You may have all different spellings, you may have all different reasons for doing it. So we mean that to kind of compress your data so you don't pay for it in S3, you choose which tags you want. That is something that catches people out. So I'm going to recommend you guys to challenge you to go investigate kind of one of these services if you are looking to do better chargeback. But there is also an API that's been released for that resource level tagging as well. So for that service-specific information, there's a couple of things to think about. So first of all, if you are doing a service chargeback, so an application chargeback, see if you can export the data. That's something that when I first started doing that when I was a customer, people hadn't really thought about doing. They hadn't gone into the application and seen if they could get out who's used it. And it was actually really easy. They could just get it from a CSV, and then we put it with the rest of our data. But to make your lives easier, I do recommend automating that. So there's often APIs that you can call to do that. If you're just looking at me and you're thinking, oh, I don't know what API is, no, that's not for me, I'm in finance or something like that, go talk to your developers. They will be able to help you. Just go and ask them. They'll probably be able to do it really simple, and there's a lot of documentation. Or take a challenge. Go and see if you can do it yourselves. Then we have our services. So our Amazon services, we do have things like you could use Python, you could use Lambda to kind of extract this information and attach it to your cost and use report and keep it within your account. There'll be a lab I'll mention later that kind of can help you do this. And as we said already, our commitments are going to be already in our cost and use report. So the big thing for this slide, and there's kind of a lot of jargon on there, but it's the centralized location. Bringing together all that data into one centralized location is really powerful because you can now add in your cost data and your business data. So if I use the RIs as an example, when you've got an RI, you've bought RIs for RDS, not EC2, RDS, and you want to say, okay, this account's used it. So you go into your bill, you see who's used it, you can then look at the account ID, and then you can see what cost center that has in your kind of account structure. Then you can charge it back. So Wanda knows what data she needed. She went off and got it. And now she's thinking to herself, how do I use this data? And that's kind of a new interesting step with you're thinking, oh, I've got this massive data lake. What reports can I make? Yeah. So she starts thinking to herself, okay, what reports do I want? What could I, what's going to make my life easier? That's a great thing to do. And then she starts thinking, okay, what about everybody else? What should I make for them? What would bill and finance care about? And maybe you're here today and you're thinking, oh, this is good. I'm going to start doing reports for everybody else and I'm going to design them. Stop. When creating reports, assume nothing, okay? So I went to the International Spy Museum in DC. Yes, I'm a big tourist when I come to America. And I saw this sign, and I thought it was really cool. I took a picture. And then when I was making this deck, I thought, this actually works really well for this topic. Because if it can work for spies, it can work for practitioners. When you're creating reports, assume nothing. Go and speak to the people you're creating the reports for. And it will not only mean that they are accepted faster, you will help them do their job. Okay? So go and find that person and say, what do you need? What format does it need to be in? How can I help you? Because then that's way more interesting story. Who doesn't get emails all the time and you just ignore it? That's not relevant. You need to go and ask them. So a couple of examples to kind of go through. So we have finance reporting. So when you're reporting to finance, and maybe there might be some finance people in here, maybe they need it in a CSV. In my company, they did. We had things like when I was doing RI chargeback, we started off this conversation where I went down to the finance department and said, hey guys, what do you need? And they were so surprised that I'd gone and asked them what format, that they were like, oh, we just want it on this date in this format with these headers. And I was like, okay. And luckily I was a developer, so I could just go and do that. And it meant that rather than them having to get the data, format it, like pivot tables, whatever, and then do it, they could just put the email from the CSV from the email straight into SAP, which meant no more human error, and they sped up the time. So with these reports, ask them what kind of format they need. Do they need it weekly? Do they need it monthly? If they need it monthly, they probably need it before a certain date for things like chargeback. Find out that information and get it sorted. Automate it if you can, because finance departments have enough things to do than pivoting your data. So just try and make it in the format they need. developers. There's been a lot of talk about kind of getting developers to do things at this conference, which has been really interesting. And so when it comes to developers, they often care about not just one account, but maybe a group of accounts. We had those OUs earlier, we mentioned. Maybe you want to group accounts together so they can see their actual application costs rather than just a linked account. I do know I'm saying this, and I work for Amazon, and Cost Explorer doesn't give you a way to do that, but that's why we have the Kudos dashboard. So this is one thing I recommend. The QR code at the top can help you go there. But this is a dashboard that allows you to see all your data in like a developer-friendly way, and we can actually group accounts together to see this. This is also really powerful because we allow you to go deep into that data. So before, I always talk about this with Cost Explorer, you have like the top 4 or 5 things, and then you have the others. And people sometimes don't look into the others because they're like, oh, it's not that expensive. It's normally just like loads of little bits I don't care about. But there can be a lot of cost optimization opportunities in the others. So I had a stakeholder who wanted to have all of his accounts and every single resource that he spent money on month by month. He had like 40 accounts and used everything. And I was like, okay, I asked him and that's what he wanted, so I gave him that data, thinking to myself, like, that's a lot of data. And he actually realized that on like line 7, there was Lambda, and he'd fallen prey to Lambda looping, which is a new term which one of my customers used, which I loved, which is where a Lambda was triggering a Lambda, which then triggered the original Lambda and just did this circle constantly. There's also a case where people put a Lambda where it puts a file in an S3 bucket that then triggers the same Lambda, which puts the file. So if you have the high Lambda costs, go and check that out. It's like a handy tip. But he would never have seen that optimization for saving if he had not had access to the big set of data. So recommend this one. Speaking of cost optimization, there's also the KPI dashboard. So if you are interested in kind of giving developers a way to have goals, to kind of review their accounts and see if they can optimize, you can use that. It is really powerful to kind of have a goal, use that kind of benchmarking to say, okay, we want to move everything to GP3. We want to take advantage of that 20% saving, but how do we start? How do we decide which volumes are going to be the ones that are going to save us the most money in the shortest amount of time? So for developers, recommend checking out this one, give them access to their data. And then we have stakeholders. These big guys, they want to know the high-level stuff. They don't really care maybe about the individual accounts. They want to see what your commitment's like. They want to see if they're on budget. They want to see if they're making money. This is a good dashboard for that. Is the cost intelligence dashboard. It's a good starting place for these. Really recommend checking that one out. A big thing for you guys, if you are giving reports to stakeholders, is don't just say, okay, there's a link to QuickSight. Good luck. Go and speak to them. There's a lot of education involved with these things. You need to make sure they understand what these costs actually mean, whether they have tax involved, whether they have kind of commitments, whose accounts they are. And again, things like, are you tracking it with budgets? That's like a really big thing that you can now add to the Kudos dashboard. So with all that, one has success. Yay. So she's been able to go around, she's gotten all the data that she needed, she's been able to attribute to the right people, and she's been able to give those report costs to the people that need it. So I do want to throw up this slide, which is kind of a summary of what we've just gone through. Apologies if I'm speaking very quickly. And so the optimization data collector is actually a lab that I'll link to in a second. But this concept is something that can work anywhere. Pulling all your data into a data lake and then spitting it out into the relevant reports is so important and will simplify your kind of chargeback, your budget tracking, whatever you're doing in terms of FinOps. But it's all about getting that data into one place so you can actually utilize it. This is very similar to something I presented on at CloudyCon, if you remember. I think at least you remember. One person does. Many years ago, I used this approach when I was doing it for multi-cloud. I used it for individual clouds, and now I use it with my customers. So I'm not saying it's the only approach. I'm just saying one I found really effective in a way that I can gather data into one place. So I've mentioned a couple of things. This is not a sales pitch. This is advice. If you are an Amazon customer and you haven't heard of these labs, this is the ones I was talking about. They are super useful. Aaron down here, Aaron Adele, is a vital part of that. We look after a lot of the labs here. If you have any feedback about them, then give me a call. But yeah, so the couple that I want to mention. So we had that triangle. Remember that triangle of that organization setup? So the organization data connector, that can go and get all that metadata and connect it to your cost and use report. So you can do things like chargeback to the OU level or the account level. Because we don't have account names in the cost and use report, but now you can get them. Optimization data collector, like that last slide, is a way of pulling in data from your entire organization and then being able to find cost optimization. You can power some of the dashboards that we have. So the Compute Optimizer dashboard and the Trusted Advisor dashboard are powered by this. Or you can get things like your budget data. So if you want to put your budget against the Kudos dashboard, you can get it using this. If you've heard me talk about the Kerr today and you're a bit like, what is this thing? I don't really know how to use SQL. How do I get started? The AWS Kerr query library is a great resource that allows you to go into this library of queries and find one to get you started. I use it all the time. If you haven't noticed, Amazon has a lot of services. And so if I need to help a customer look for their costs, sometimes I don't know what the line item is. So I go and use the library to kind of get started. And if you have a query and you want to share it with the rest of the world, then you can create a pull request to submit your query as well. And finally, the cost intelligence dashboards. You've probably heard people speak about it all the time. We have Ali, who basically created it, who spoke earlier. And these dashboards are the things I was just presenting on. They're a great tool to get you started in terms of cost visibility. I don't like to say a dashboard's going to solve all your problems, because that's not the case. There's culture, there's awareness, there's a lot of other things. But to get good visibility, this is a really easy and fast way to get started that you could just spin up. Literally, you could go home today, you could use the CLI, you could spin it up and have a look at your costs. And if you don't like it, delete it. Or if you like certain parts of it and you don't like other parts, you can change it. It's all in your Amazon account, so it means that you can manipulate the information, you can change it, you can add whatever data that you want into it. So best practices, very simple slide, just summarize the talk for today. So get your billing data as raw as possible. So go for that detailed billing for the cost and use report, get all the basic information you can, because it's much harder if you have the group level information and you try and go deeper than if you have the detailed and you can kind of summarize it. Because people will always want to say, oh, you've told me I can save $2,000 a month by EBS. Well, what EBS volume should I change? And if you've only got that kind of percentage saving, then they're not going to be very happy. Please have an ownership strategy. So that triangle that I had really works if people own certain accounts. And it also means that when they get that bill that we were talking about, or they get this report saying we've done this chargeback, they know what they own. It's not a surprise anymore. And then that is also really important when it comes to things like optimization, because if people know that they own accounts, they feel pride. They want to make sure that their account is optimized. And that's where you can do things like gamification and stuff like that. Please automate where possible. As simple as kind of getting that format in a CSV that's right for finance is a really simple way to start. But every time you do something every month that's like a manual charge, go and talk to your peers, talk to other people in the community. How have you automated this? Use the Slack channel to kind of get advice. Assume nothing. If anything from this talk, remember that I went to the Spy Museum and that you should assume nothing. I think that's the biggest takeaway. But it's so important to create reports for the reader, and it allows them to go into detail with it. And also, don't be scared to reiterate on reports. Just because you had a month where you decided to go hard for GP3, next month, if that's done, they don't care about that anymore. They might care about using a new S3 kind of intelligent tiering or something like that. Be willing to have conversations with people regularly so you can iterate on reports so it's the best. Because we've all, like I said, you've all gotten emails that you just get every month that you just delete. Don't be that person. Make people want to see your reports every week, every month. Get the data into one place. Biggest, again, another takeaway, just get it into one place, connect it all together, and that gives you so much power over your estate and your accounts so you can see everything in one place. So if you've enjoyed hearing me speak, which I hope you have, I have a Twitch show called The Keys to AWS Optimization. It's a weekly Twitch show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. We have guests on all the time, so if you're interested in being a guest, if you've got a really cool story about anything and you want to come share it, maybe not about your holidays, but maybe more about around FinOps, you can come and share it. We have SMEs come on from Amazon to kind of tell you how to save money with services. Like we had a guy who runs DynamoDB, and he kind of told people how to save money with it, which is pretty cool. So we have that every week, different time zones, depending on where you are. And then if the time zone is not time zone friendly for you to join live, we have a YouTube channel of all your videos that you can kind of check out. And tomorrow in the Speakeasy, we'll be having a table where you can come and join me. I'm not live streaming, I'm just recording, and that will be put on YouTube. But come ask me a question, I'll ask you a question, and just kind of say hi and tell us what you've learned. That'd be a really cool way to get on the show. So yeah, and I'm also going to be at the automation talk. But thank you so much for listening. And we have questions, which seem to have disappeared from here. But yeah, thank you so much.
Any questions?
Oh, I also have stickers, if anybody wants a sticker. Just throw them into the audience.
You get a sticker. You get. Everyone check under your seats for a sticker.
Imagine if we had the budget to do that. Any questions? What are your questions? No? Oh, I got a couple.
I did, yeah.
Thank you.
Dude, sit in the back, man.
Get your steps up.
So you mentioned about Billing Conductor earlier, and it being available as individual groups of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is the level of detail in the Billing Conductor same as a typical CUR, or is there a difference between the two?
It's the same. So
exact same level of details?
yes. So if you have your CUR, so it's basically a CUR for a group of accounts. So when you have the cost and use report, we have it for your entire estate, or your entire organization, or you can do it per member account. This is now like the between. So if you choose 5 accounts that you want to have a CUR for, it will create the cost and use report for those 5 accounts.
Perfect, thank you. And I'd also like to give a shout out that ability to do reservations for billing groups, love it.
Oh, good.
So one of the things you're talking about, the optimization data collection lab, is you just want to get the data in one place. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about maybe some future labs about sharing the data out based on like row levels or anything from an area? So like the Intuit talk earlier, they can access it for their teams.
Yes. So I'm hoping to, with Aaron, I've actually written a POC to do row-level security on things like the dashboards and the data. So if that's interested to anybody, the idea being that you can create now groups in QuickSight. I don't know if I'm going too detailed, but the idea is using groups, you can now say, okay, this half of the audience have access to account A and B, and you guys have C and D. You guys won't be able to see you, you won't be able to see you. So this is, row-level security has been around for QuickSight for quite a while, but the groups thing allow you to choose the users on QuickSight who can have access to what. So keep your eyes peeled for me talking about row-level security coming up. There's one at the front and one at the back.
Oh man, right in the opposite.
Make sure you get your question. You were like one of the first.
I purposely waited until you get all the way in the corner.
just trying to get steps up for the day.
This is going back to the billing conductor question just asked. You said that for a group of for an OU, it creates a CUR for that OU?
So it's similar to an OU. So it doesn't rely, because billing and organizations are like slightly separate. Mm-hmm. So it can't read organizational units and pull it into ABC, but you could create the same group of accounts in ABC. Yeah.
So then it creates a new CUR for that group of accounts?
Yes.
But you still have the original CUR for the payer organization. It does not alter the data in the original CUR?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, I know I'm plugging back my own Twitch show, but I'm just going to go back onto it. So we literally did an ABC episode 3 weeks ago that shows you all this information. So if anyone is interested about ABC, I'd recommend kind of checking out. It's just going to, I think you're going to stand right in front of it, just in front of the QR code. But yeah, check out that episode. It does go into detail a lot about it. So yeah.
All right, we got time for one more.
He was the first. Yeah. No, go.
Thank you very much for the talks. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the differences between AWS Cost Explorer and Optics?
Yeah. So Optics, we're a team. Cost Explorer is a native service. So that just is a way for you to visualize your costs. We're a team that helps customers do it. So there's the Cloud Financial Management Economics team that exists in Amazon. So they're a resource that if you have a TAM, you should go and ask them for some help. We just focus on the large global customers, and we're a dedicated resource to like a set of customers. So Optics are people, Cost Explorer is a service.
All right, folks, I know we gave Steph a round of applause for a very good presentation, but I believe we can add more FOMO to Ballroom C if we just put a little bit more effort into it. So a little bit harder this time. Let's give it up for Steph Gooch.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.